My twin sister is elegant, beautiful, and excels in everything, totally different from ordinary me. Because of that, my parents always suspected I was switched at birth. To make room for their real daughter, they even pushed me into the river. But what they didn't know was, I was actually their biological daughter. When I woke up, I found myself back in time, to when I just got my college acceptance letter. As I opened my eyes, I saw 2 acceptance letters in front of me. My parents were sitting affectionately with my sister, eagerly waiting for her to open hers. I knew she would get into Fudan University, and I only got into a regular college. With a heavy heart, I picked up my letter, not planning to stick around for the humiliation. I had only taken a few steps when I heard cheers behind me. "Emma, you truly are my daughter, never letting me down." After hearing Dad's proud words, Mom chimed in meaningfully, just different from that one who always drags us down. In my previous life, those words made me explode, insisting on a paternity test. But my parents refused without a thought. "We don't have the money to waste on such nonsense." At that time, I naively comforted myself, thinking they couldn't bear to lose me. I realized too late that they never thought of me as their daughter. Since I was ordinary, they considered me a stain in their perfect life. They didn't want a paternity test because, if I wasn't tied to them, I could no longer be controlled. They wanted me to drop out, work, and earn money to support my sister's lifestyle. When I refused, they tied me up while I was asleep, causing me to miss my college enrollment. They didn't allow me to repeat the year, so I had to work according to their plans, saving for a year to finally have enough to go back to school. Yet my parents demanded I give that money to my sister, who wanted to travel abroad. When I didn't agree, they chased me down as I ran with my own bank card. In the tussle, Mom accidentally pushed me into the river. As I struggled, I hoped they'd save me, but they just made sure the card was safe, then left hand in hand, ignoring my drowning desperation. I always remember the suffocating sensation of the water and the despair of sinking forever. In my last moments, I realized they'd never seen me as their daughter, considering me less important than my sister's dog. Once the dog jumped into the river, and my parents immediately ordered me to go fetch it. The river was fast, and when I hesitated, Dad kicked me in. I was swept downstream, and just as I lost hope, Dad jumped in. I thought he was coming to save me, but he swam toward the dog. A passing villager saved me in the end. Since I'm reborn, I won't expect anything from them anymore, or let them harm me again. I took a deep breath and turned to face them. "You're right, Mom and Dad. My sister got your genes and is exceptional. I'm so ordinary I must not be your child." They were stunned. They couldn't understand why the needy me would admit what I had always rejected. Unable to comprehend but confident in their control, they said dismissively, "Good you know it. If not for our pity, you'd be out on the streets." "I don't need your pity. Since I'm not your real daughter, it's not right to hang around here." I gathered my things, ready to leave. They thought I was just upset and provoking them. When I emerged with my packed bags, they realized I was serious, especially as I reached the door. "Molly, think carefully. If you leave, don't come back." Without hesitating, I opened the door and stepped out. Though uncertain about the next steps, I didn't regret my decision. I inhaled deeply and walked away. But then Mom grabbed my backpack. "Fine, go, but pay back the money we spent on you. It was your choice to raise me, not mine." Neighbors, mostly elderly, gathered hearing the commotion. "What's going on?" "Molly, don't be stubborn with your mom. Blood is thicker than water," Neighbor Anna advised. I forced a bitter smile. "I'm not their biological child. I can't keep freeloading." Mom seized the moment. "If you know you're not ours, pay us back." I scanned the curious neighbors and faced my parents. "When you found out I wasn't yours, you could have told the police. The government would have helped find my real parents. If not, they'd raise me. But you feared hardship for your biological daughter, so you made me suffer instead. I've had your leftovers, hand-me-downs. You've spent less than $1,000 on me. I'm calling the cops now to find my true parents." That got my sister worried. If the truth came out, my parents' reputation would be ruined. To keep up appearances, my sister whispered to our parents, leading to an immediate shift in their attitude. "Molly, your mom was just joking with you earlier. How could she want your money?" I glanced at her skeptically. Are you sure? Mom gritted her teeth, promising convincingly, I'm sure. Even if I change my mind, the neighbors here will keep me in check. Despite my sister's prideful nature, I finally managed to leave home. I found a summer job at a nearby bubble tea shop, where I got meals and lodging. $10 an hour, and I had to work 12 hours a day. Being busy and physically exhausted almost made me forget about my chaotic family. One morning, right after the bubble tea shop opened, as I was cleaning up, I heard Emma's voice. Molly, what are you doing here? I glanced up at Emma, who was glaring at me, and resumed my work. I thought you'd run away to do something impressive, but you're just doing this lowly job, she remarked sarcastically. In the past, I would always hold back due to my parents favoring her whenever she picked a fight. But now I didn't have the same patience. This place has cameras. I don't mind showing your classmates, friends, and teachers what kind of person you really are. You wouldn't dare. If you do, I won't let you get away with it, Emma angrily pointed at me. I crossed my arms, looking at her with disdain. Oh really? How exactly won't you let me get away with it? I'll have Mom and Dad come and beat you. Just you wait, yelled Emma before storming out. And she didn't see the wet spot on the steps, taking a nasty spill. I couldn't help but laugh at the ever so elegant Emma's rare clumsiness. Emma, face flushed red with anger and embarrassment, hobbled away without further argument. The job at the bubble tea shop was hectic, and people kept coming and going. Busy enough that I almost forgot about the whole Emma incident. Until Mom and Dad showed up, furious, right in front of me, jogging my memory. Molly, how dare you push your sister down the stairs? I'll beat the disrespect out of you, they shouted, ignoring the other patrons as they hurled whatever they could get their hands on at me. I quickly dodged to the side, but a machine ended up being shattered behind me. Seeing me dodge just fueled their anger. You still dare to dodge? They burst through the flimsy wooden barrier between us. My mom yanked my hair, while my dad dumped a bunch of ingredients over me. I didn't need a mirror to feel how disheveled I looked. Wiping my face with my hand didn't help much with the sticky feeling. But it didn't stop me from saying, I didn't push her, she fell by herself. My mom slapped me, liar. I stared at my ignorant parents with unhidden resentment. In their eyes, even Emma's crap was gold. How could she lie? Only I, their ordinary daughter, could be lying. In the next moment my dad slapped me. I raised you, and you have the nerve to hate me? I'll teach you a lesson. Stop it, or I'm calling the police. The boss finally showed up. Call the police? I'll discipline my own daughter if I see fit. Not even the police can stop me, Dad said, continuing to wreck the shop with glee. The boss, realizing reasoning was futile, shielded me behind him until the police arrived. When they showed up, Mom and Dad had no clue about the gravity of their actions. This ungrateful brat dared to push her sister. We have the right to punish her, they insisted, expecting the officers to just leave after their explanation. But that didn't happen. The police, after reviewing the footage, arrested them. The boss and I had to go to the station for statements. They not only had to make up for the damages, totaling more than $6 grand, but faced a 7-day detention too. The next day Emma was back. There's actually a daughter like you who would send her parents to jail. Wow, Molly, just wow. I didn't say anything, just continued my work. Emma seethed, you need to quit right now and come home with me. Her commanding tone made me laugh. Home? I don't have a home. Isn't that your place, Emma? Emma raised her chin defiantly. I don't care. You're coming back with me. Our parents said you should return to take care of me. No way, I'm not going back. You can forget that idea. But if you want to join them behind bars, don't let me stop you. Emma stomped her foot in anger, and I thought she'd finally leave. But instead, she sat down and just watched me work with intense focus, making me uneasy. Before I could figure out what she was up to, I saw her striding straight towards my newly arrived boss. Emma shot me a smug smile, causing me to grip my cup tightly. Are you this bubble tea shop's owner? I'm Molly's sister, and I have some things to discuss with you. Emma spoke confidently, easily gaining the boss's admiration. The boss adopted a helpful expression, I'm all ears. Molly might be our adopted sister, but we were always treated equally by our parents. They regret their actions, and I was hoping you could convince Molly to come back home. The boss's gaze wavered. And after a moment he said, "I'll help you." Then he walked over to me, his earlier warmth completely gone. "Pack your things. I'm settling your pay. Don't come back." For a moment, it felt like getting hit. I didn't understand why he was firing me. I just knew I needed this job. Without it, finding something suitable right away seemed impossible. After collecting myself, I managed to ask why. His tone grew impatient. "There's no why. It's my right to let you go." Emma chimed in, stirring the pot. "Molly, the boss doesn't want to hire you anymore. Just leave. Why are you stubbornly asking for a reason? It's embarrassing for me." The boss, hearing Emma's apparently understanding words, also looked at me with dissatisfaction. He pulled $60 from the drawer, set it on the table, and waved me away. "Take the money and go. I don't want to see you again." I took off my apron, picked up the money and bowed to the boss. "Thanks for the job. Like you said, you can let me go. And I accept that. I just want to know why. Maybe you could help me understand." The boss hesitated, sighing. "Even though you're adopted, you should still be dutiful to your adoptive parents. You gotta know, raising someone is bigger than giving birth to them." That's when it hit me. The boss's wife isn't well, and they never had their own kids. They adopted a child, but after the kid graduated college, their biological parents showed up. The kid left with them, happily without ever contacting the boss again. Hearing those words, I realized the boss was still bitter about it. I glanced at Emma slyly. She must have known this beforehand. She deliberately emphasized the word adopted. I chuckled. "You've met my parents. Do you think they could have an Emma?" Emma glared at me furiously. "Molly, you're such a liar. Are you saying I'm not their kid and maybe you are?" "They're not stupid. They know who their real kid is," I said with a smirk. "You don't even look a bit like them." The boss, unable to resist, began comparing our faces. Suspicion crept into his eyes. Just then, some of my sister's classmates in the cafe spoke up after observing us. "Honestly, Emma doesn't look a bit like them. If she were theirs, she'd look average like them and her sister." "Lucky she's not theirs," one said. Another chimed in, "I've been wondering. Her parents are a nanny and a security guard. How'd they have a scholarly kid like her?" Emma, hearing this gossip, could no longer hold her temper. She turned and shouted, "Shut up," then fled in tears. I was about to leave, but the boss stopped me. "I was wrong. Stay. You've gotten good at this job. I'll even pay you 15 an hour." I paused. With nowhere better to go, I stayed. But when my parents came home from custody, they overheard the neighbors gossiping. Emma's classmates had spread our convo far to other classmates' parents, and eventually the whole neighborhood knew. Mom and Dad denied it. "Stop talking nonsense. Emma's ours." But the neighbors snorted, "Yeah, right. Emma's good looks aren't from you." Mom tried to argue, but Emma, tearful, ran into her arms. Cuddling Emma, my mom hurried home, ignoring the busybodies. My friend filled me in, then left due to her parents' insistence. Unlike them, I wasn't rattled. I knew Mom and Dad adored Emma too much to believe she wasn't theirs. Even faced with the truth, they'd fool themselves. I thought they'd learned a lesson, wouldn't be back with more nonsense. But they returned in a way I wasn't expecting. They arrived with bags and Mom, crying, rushed but stopped short of me. "Molly, my sweet girl. I'm so sorry," she wept, confusing me. "I know now you're my real child. I promise to make it up to you. Come home, you won't need to work. We'll support you." I subtly stepped back, creating distance. "The hurt you've caused runs deep. I can't forgive you," I said. Mom staggered, devastated, and knelt before me. "I'm begging, if you hate me, then take it out on me. Just forgive me." I mocked her. "If you really regret, stay away. You're only bothering me." She collapsed, sobbing. Dad placed gifts before me. "Look, we picked these out for you. We're sincerely sorry. Even if you're mad, think about yourself. You won't earn enough here for college." One tried emotions, the other bribery. They seemed sharper than grade school grads. I wasn't foolish. If they offered funds, I'd gladly accept. If not, I'd cope alone. Mom embraced me tightly. "Of course we'll support you. Come home, and you'll have the money." Amidst everyone's gazes, I shook my head. "I'm not going back." Mom wailed and fell to her knees. "I'm begging for forgiveness," she pleaded. As patrons eyed me disapprovingly. Not understanding my refusal, they muttered, "Cold-hearted, No wonder they doubt she's there, someone quipped. The boss hearing this grew uneasy. Molly, no matter what, they're your parents. Considering they raised you, you ought to give them another chance. I looked at my boss straight in the eye, emotionless. Last time, they beat me almost to death. You saw that yourself. You should just go back with your parents. I don't need any more summer workers. The boss said this and didn't look at me again. Unlike the last time Emma came and tried to convince him to keep me, I stayed silent. I took my pay and backpack and left without a word. As soon as I got outside, my dad snatched my bag, and my mom grabbed me, dragging me toward their beat-up van. I cried for passers-by to call the cops, but after the boss told them we were mother and daughter, they thought it was just parents disciplining a disobedient kid. I was shaking with hopelessness, but my parents just kept forcing me into the van. Even when my head slammed into the door with a heavy sound, they ignored it. They didn't seem like my parents at all, more like cruel criminals. Their expressions weren't the pleading ones they used to get me back before. They tied my hands and feet with rope. Emma walked smugly up to me, whispering so my folks couldn't hear. So what if I'm not their real kid? One word from me and they tied you up, didn't they? I glanced at my parents nearby and lowered my voice too. Are you telling me you had them tie me up and take away my freedom? Of course. And not just that. I plan to keep you tied up till the end of break, so you can't go to college. Once I got the answer I needed, I asked again. Do mom and dad know? Do they know you're not their real kid? I knew my folks well. They excelled at lying to themselves. Emma's face changed. So what if they know? So what if they don't? There's definitely a difference. I didn't bother arguing with Emma anymore. I raised my voice. Are you sure you want to do this to me, your real kid, for Emma, your adopted one? My parents were furious. What nonsense are you spouting? That was just a ploy to get you back here. Did you really think you were ours by blood? I saw Emma's nervousness and replied calmly. But Emma knows she's not your real kid. Emma tried to cover her panic with anger. I never said that. You're just making things up. My parents believed Emma without question, and my mom smacked my head. My mind buzzed. Even though I'd accepted that my parents didn't love me, their actions still hit me hard emotionally. If they were willing to give me even a tenth of the love they gave Emma, I wouldn't feel so bad. But this was reality, and I had to fight to escape the cage they built around me. Molly, you falsely accusing me hurt so much. Emma feigned sadness. My parents were angrier seeing Emma's expression. Dad undid his belt, yelling about beating me to death. Emma grinned, anticipating me getting beaten up. But right before the belt hit, I have proof. The recorder in my pocket's been on all along. My parents exchanged glances. Then Mom pulled out the recorder and, with my help, started playing it. Emma tried to intervene, but stopped when she saw my parents' displeased looks. Hearing, so what if I'm not their real kid? One word from me and they tied you up, didn't they? Made Emma go pale and slump on the couch, unable to think of any way out. She tried, Dad, Mom, I'll apologize to Molly now. Mom waved her off, no need. Emma, tears streaming, tried to run out, but Mom hugged her. It doesn't matter if you're biologically ours or not. I only recognize you as my daughter. Dad agreed. I only acknowledge you too. My heart ached. Fingers and toes went numb. Their favoritism wasn't about blood, or even emotions they just liked the best. Their family of 3 cried together, leaving me, their blood, tied up and unable to escape. After they comforted Emma, they finally remembered me. Behave yourself, and look after your sister. Don't start any trouble. Once school starts, I'll untie you, and you can find a factory job. It pays well, not worse than college. I looked at their hypocritical faces, and couldn't help but laugh. I actually did laugh, tears rolling down my cheeks. I wish I were the adopted one. My parents were outraged. What do you mean? Think we're not treating you well? Look around. Do you even deserve our love? Dad picked up a nearby stool and hit me with it. Mom did nothing to stop him, cheering on. Beat that brat. Emma stood aside, mocking me. Feeling the warmth trickling down my forehead, I didn't dodge. Instead, I gave them a defiant smile. Dad raised the stool again, but was suddenly tackled to the ground. 2 female officers rushed in, quickly untying me and treating the cut on my head. Mom and Emma were stunned as Dad got cuffed and driven away. They quickly tried to explain. He was hitting his own daughter. It's family business. You can't arrest him. The police calmly explained. It's illegal to hit anyone regardless of who they are. He'll face the consequences. Emma was more collected than Mom. Officer, how long will he be in for? The officer, fond of beautiful things, said. If there's no serious harm, 7 to 15 working days usually. They breathed a sigh of relief. And as Dad was pushed into the patrol car, he shouted to me. You brat, called the cops? Wait till I'm out, I'll finish you. I was helped up with a horrified look from the cops. My face bloody, but still smiling like it was nothing. Officer, I want to report them. I pointed to them. They illegally kept me imprisoned. Mom and Emma hadn't even spoken when Dad jumped in. I tied her up. But it wasn't to imprison her. It was so I could hit her easily. Emma smirked at me, challenging me with her eyes. I got evidence. It's on the recorder. Mom held the recorder like it was burning hot, quickly snapping it in half and stuffing it into the kettle before the cops could react. She shielded Emma protectively. My daughter didn't do anything wrong. You can't touch her. The police looked at me unsure. Without concrete evidence, we can't arrest them. Who said I don't have evidence? I pulled another recorder from my pocket. Mom tried to grab it, but was thrown to the ground by the police. I was helped into an ambulance while Mom, Dad, and Emma were taken away in a police car. At the station, my parents refused to admit that Emma had anything to do with my imprisonment. They claimed Emma was just trying to annoy me in the recording. Emma's excellent test scores and the attention from schools and officials complicated things. Without a confession, the police had to release Emma due to pressure. My parents were sentenced. Dad got a year and Mom 7 months for illegal imprisonment and assault causing minor injury. At visitation, they told my sister about all the money they saved up. This money is all for you. Spend it however you want. Without us around, don't be hard on yourself. As for me, the daughter who put them behind bars, they wished nothing more than to never see or think of me again. I didn't mind being ignored. I just kept an eye on the time, waiting. Voices outside grew louder. They had arrived. The woman who entered looked just like my sister. She stared at her, saying after a moment, my child, my beautiful child, and hugging her tightly. Behind her was a girl who looked just like me. The officer explained. There was a mix-up at the hospital, and the parents took the wrong kids home. Seeing the woman's nice clothes, Emma didn't hesitate to agree to leave with her. Facing my parents' disappointment, she faked sincerity. I hate to disappoint Mom, but you're still my parents, and I'll always be grateful for what you've done. But my parents weren't fooled this time. They looked at the girl behind the woman with love. Come here, child, let your parents look at you, they urged. She, unsure but polite, went over to them. Mom eagerly asked, how did you do in the college entrance exam? She hesitated. Okay, I got into Jiangda University. Mom's brief joy faded since it was just an average college. She shouted, I raised her from nothing. And now when she's doing well, you want to take her? No way. She's my daughter. Emma was anxious not to let the woman change her mind. My grades are my own doing. Nothing to do with you. Mom insisted. I helped make you excellent. Emma retorted, I'm great because of my real parents' genes. You two could only raise a failure. The harsh words deeply hurt my parents. Regret was written all over their faces. They regretted taking all the blame for Emma. But regret wouldn't change anything. My real sister stayed. Emma left with the woman, but came back alone later. My parents' despair turned to hope. Emma, you didn't want to leave us, they pleaded. You'll always be our child if you choose to stay. Emma's response shocked them. She pointed at my real sister Sue. Mom says you need to change your registration. That's not your home anymore. Sue looked painfully at them, nodded quietly, I understand. Emma left, and my parents, though cooler to Sue, still talked with her. After all, she was still useful compared to me. I had no patience for their chatter, so I waited outside for Sue. When she finally came, she glared at me. How could you put Mom and Dad in jail? I met her gaze seriously. They broke the law. I didn't put them there. But you're their real daughter. You should have forgiven them. Hearing such childishness, I didn't bother responding. I walked away, but she kept trailing me, whining. Frustrated, I snapped, shut up. You really think being their daughter matters? If Emma returns, you'd be kicked out. Instead of defending them, plan your next move. Sue was confident. No. They must love me. Angry, I dragged her back. Thank goodness, my parents hadn't left. I motioned Sue to be quiet, then turned to them. Emma said if you disown Sue, she'll be your daughter, I told them. My parents nodded happily, saying yes, yes, yes. Why recognize her? An ungrateful girl like her can't compare to our Emma. Sue broke away from me in anger, a mix of sadness and fury. She charged at my parents, ready to hit them, but a guard stopped her. Even after leaving the prison, she couldn't let it go. I must be blind to ever think they were decent people, she vented. Once she finished ranting, I had a moment to fill her in on her current situation. Although she's been accepted to college, she doesn't have a cent for tuition or living expenses. She has to figure it out on her own. I had hoped her adoptive family would support her, but after seeing how they treated her, I lost that hope. Sue was planning to work with me, but then Emma showed up. Emma glanced at us with disdain and walked right past us to my parents' bedroom. Sue stopped her. You're not a part of this family anymore. Don't go in there. What if you steal something? Emma smoothed her expensive clothes and scoffed. The money's from Mom and Dad. No way I'm letting you two nobodies spend it. You've got some nerve. You disowned them, but you're fine taking their money, Sue snapped. I nudged Sue. Why argue with her? Even if she doesn't take the money, we're not getting it anyway. Why waste energy? Sue sat down, still fuming. It just ticks me off. Emma grabbed her passbook, threw us some parting insults and left. Losers, get on your knees and beg. Maybe I'll toss you a few coins if I'm in the mood. After she left, Sue and I continued working long hours. One afternoon, we ran into one of Emma's classmates on the way home. Did you know? Emma turned down Fudan University. She's applying to overseas universities. She plans to study abroad. Sue's mood plummeted as the classmate gestured excitedly. Back home, Sue suddenly asked me, why is the world so unfair? Emma is so awful, yet she's doing so well. I patted her shoulder. Don't be so sure about that. Over a few weeks, I helped Sue secure a student loan. She finally relaxed. Once the semester starts, the leftovers from part-time work should cover our expenses. I thought about telling her more, but decided to wait until everything was confirmed. No need to get her hopes up too soon. However, when we returned to work, Sam was there waiting for us. Sue instinctively wanted to run to him, but stopped shyly when she realized. In my past life, I drifted as a soul after I died. I saw Emma get taken back in by her biological mom, and Sam's eventual divorce from Sue's biological mom. Emma didn't get any help from Sam. On the other hand, despite not being his biological kid, Sam helped Sue study abroad and find a job, treating her like his real daughter. About what's been going on, Sam began. I've decided to send both of you to study abroad. I'll cover all tuition and living costs. Are you interested? After a glance at each other, Sue hesitantly asked, does Mom agree to this? You don't need to worry about her. I'm preparing to divorce her. Sue was stunned. In her memory, their marriage was strong. Why? She asked. Sam tapped the table twice. I did a paternity test with Emma. She's your mom's child, but not mine. I haven't told them yet. Can you keep this secret for now? After Sam left, Sue grilled me. No wonder you weren't stressed. Did you already know Dad would support us? I had my suspicions from my past life's memories, but couldn't know for sure. That's why I still arranged for the student loan. Of course, I wouldn't admit it to her now. Sue, even though she didn't buy my story, couldn't get anything out of me, and had to give up. Both Sue and I quit our jobs and got sent abroad. Sam planned for us to attend a prep school for a year and apply for colleges, so we could officially enroll next year. When we got abroad, Sue still kept tabs on Emma. After Emma gave up her enrollment, Sam had a straightforward conversation with her and her mother, and swiftly divorced. Since she was at fault, Sam's wife practically left with nothing to keep him from spilling the beans. Emma found herself back in her old, poor life. When she realized she gave up Fudan University, yet couldn't go abroad, Emma lost it. She went after her mother, kicking and hitting. Emma calmed down. Mom believes you can get into Fudan this year. Let's study for another year. And maybe next year, Tsinghua or Peking University won't be out of reach. Emma started her repeat student journey, But with decent test scores, she became cocky. She thought she didn't need to study seriously. Even just winging it would get her a better score than this year. Her teachers didn't like her carefree attitude and called her mom in to talk. But her mom was even more arrogant. Our Emma's a genius. She can take a test casually and bring your school a top score. Don't make it hard for her, or we'll transfer. And then that top score won't be your school's glory. The teachers couldn't do much and left Emma to her own devices. When the test scores came out, Emma only scored just over 600, so Fudan was out of the question. But she could still get into a decent school. Yet her usual pride wouldn't let her accept it. She thought she underestimated her competition this year. She wanted to repeat again, and her mom agreed. But her scores got worse year after year. By her 30s, she finally went to a mediocre university. After graduation, she managed to find a job, only to find Sue as the head of their branch office. It seemed like she'd quit after seeing Sue, but instead, after work, she knelt in front of Sue's car. "Please, I beg you, be the bigger person and let it go." Sue initially wanted to confront her, but found it boring when Emma quickly asked for forgiveness and lost interest. She stopped paying attention to her. When Emma's parents got out of prison, Emma had taken all their money, and they regretted but couldn't do anything about it. But they didn't give up. They tried to find out about me and Sue, hoping to leech off us for the rest of their lives. But we had already moved abroad. By the time Sue returned for work, they had taken her to court. But there was no paternity test back then, so they couldn't provide any proof that Sue was their daughter and naturally lost the case. They caused a scene at Sue's company, so she had security take them 70 or 80 miles out to the wilderness, dropped them off, and left, warning them that they'd face worse if they tried it again. After Sue's actions, they calmed down. Whenever I went back to the country, I'd leave before they could find me. They remembered all the money spent on Emma growing up, and went to her, demanding either repayment or support in their old age. But Emma was already at her breaking point. From a gifted child to an ordinary person, their demands pushed Emma over the edge. She snapped and stabbed them. Her dad was fatally stabbed in the heart and didn't make it. Her mom, stabbed several times, fortunately, avoided any vital spots and survived. But her health was ruined, unable to do any heavy work. Eventually, I heard she ended up on the streets, surviving by begging. Though Emma committed murder, she was diagnosed with a mental illness and wasn't sentenced to death. She was committed to a mental institution, living among other patients. While college entrance exams are important, they're just tests. They don't decide your whole life. The end.